Welcome to Whisper Facts 101. Here is 101 fascinating facts about bears. Bears in the wild often display competitive behaviors that resemble organized games, especially when resources like salmon or berries are abundant in small areas. These competitions involve posturing, bluff charges, and wrestling to establish dominance without risking serious injury. Such interactions determine feeding order and territorial rights, ensuring stronger individuals maintain priority access to the most valuable food sources, which is essential for survival during harsh seasons. During the mating season, male bears sometimes engage in prolonged contests that resemble endurance sports. Two males may follow the same female for several days, each trying to outlast the other's pursuit. When rivals finally meet, they engage in roaring, circling, and powerful shoving matches, testing their strength and stamina. The winner earns the right to mate, passing on his genes and securing his place in the bear hierarchy. Young bears, especially cubs, frequently engage in playful wrestling, chasing, and mock fighting with their siblings. While this looks like harmless play, it's an important training exercise. These playful battles develop coordination, muscle strength, and the reflexes needed for hunting and defense. They also help the cubs learn social cues, such as when to assert themselves and when to retreat, lessons that will serve them for life in the wild. In Alaska, large gatherings of brown bears occur along riverbanks during the salmon spawning season. While these scenes appear peaceful, they are actually competitive fishing games. Each bear positions itself strategically for the best chance at catching salmon, whether by pouncing, standing in rushing water, or using a snorkel method. The competition is intense, as the most successful fishers gain a nutritional advantage heading into winter. Some bears in the wild take part in what could be called tree games, especially when fruit is ripe. Multiple bears may climb the same tree in search of apples or berries, swatting at each other or bouncing on branches to knock food down. These antics look playful but have serious stakes, as gaining access to high-calorie fruit is critical before hibernation. Polar bears experience a very different kind of game tied to the seasonal return of sea ice. Their survival depends on finding seal-breathing holes hidden in the frozen landscape. This requires immense patience and stealth, as the bear must wait silently for hours, reading subtle signs in the ice. The bear that can endure the wait and strike at the perfect moment wins the reward of a high-energy meal. In wildlife reserves, researchers sometimes create enrichment challenges for bears that act as safe, non-invasive games. They use puzzle feeders, hidden scents, and movable logs to encourage problem-solving and foraging behavior. These activities not only stimulate the bears mentally, but also reveal their impressive intelligence and adaptability. The most resourceful bears quickly figure out solutions and claim the rewards, mirroring natural competition in the wild. On Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, brown bears demonstrate incredible endurance during salmon runs by traveling from one river to another in a single day. This natural endurance race allows them to take advantage of different fish migration timings. Such movements require strong navigational skills, an acute sense of smell, and the energy to keep moving, with each successful river visit offering a feast that fuels their journey. Historic records from medieval Europe reveal a much darker chapter in the story of bear games. Public spectacles such as bear baiting, where captive bears were set upon by dogs, were once common entertainment. These brutal events reflected human dominance over nature, but have since been outlawed in most countries. Today, these practices are remembered as examples of cruelty, strengthening the push for global wildlife protection laws. In indigenous Arctic cultures, ceremonial bear hunts were sometimes performed in dance form during festivals. These symbolic games paid respect to the bear spirit and taught younger members important hunting traditions and survival lessons. Through reenactment, communities passed down knowledge of bear behavior, seasonal cycles, and the respectful relationship between hunter and prey, blending cultural expression with practical education for living in a harsh environment. Bears in mountainous regions often turn the search for food into a competitive climbing game. When nut-bearing trees such as beeches or oaks produce a heavy crop, multiple bears may arrive at the same location. They climb with surprising agility, sometimes shaking branches to dislodge nuts while fending off other bears trying to steal their spot. This is more than a test of climbing skill. It's a strategic contest over limited high-energy resources before winter. In North American wetlands, Black bears sometimes engage in what could be considered a foraging race during peak berry season. These races happen when several bears converge on the same patch of blueberries or cranberries. Each bear must balance speed and efficiency, grabbing as much as possible without wasting time or letting rivals get too close. Such intense feeding bouts can last hours, with the most determined bears leaving with visibly fuller bellies. In the tundra, polar bears use a kind of stalking game to hunt seabirds nesting on rocky cliffs. They must approach quietly from downwind, using the terrain to hide their movement. Any sudden motion can spook the birds, so patience is critical. If the bear reaches the nests undetected, it can feast on eggs and chicks. This stealth-based game requires timing, precision, and an understanding of wind patterns to succeed. Grizzly bears near streams often participate in a high-risk fishing game during the salmon run by standing directly in fast-moving rapids. The goal is to snatch leaping salmon out of midair, a method that demands lightning-fast reflexes and incredible paw-eye coordination. Bears that master this skill can feed more quickly and with less competition than those wading in calmer waters downstream. In coastal British Columbia, bears compete in intertidal scavenging games when the tide goes out. They flip over rocks to uncover crabs, clams, and other marine delicacies. This activity becomes competitive when multiple bears share the same shoreline, forcing each to work quickly while keeping an eye on rivals. The bear that moves most efficiently between promising rock formations often leaves with the richest haul. When snow blankets their territory, some bears turn to scavenging carcasses left by wolves or other predators. This creates a strategic game of timing, as arriving too soon risks confrontation with the original hunters, while waiting too long might mean the food is gone. Bears rely on keen senses to locate these opportunities and judge the right moment to approach without unnecessary danger. Playful interactions between cubs and their mothers sometimes evolve into training games that mimic real-life hunting scenarios. A mother bear may hide pieces of food or pretend to block access to a foraging site, forcing her cubs to work around the obstacle. These lessons teach problem-solving, persistence, and adaptability, skills they will need once they face competition from other adult bears. During years when acorns are abundant, black bears may travel great distances to reach oak-rich areas, leading to large gatherings where dozens feed in proximity. Here, dominance games play out quietly but firmly. Larger bears take the best trees, while smaller individuals must work around the edges or move constantly to avoid confrontation. These subtle contests are just as important as direct fights in shaping the feeding hierarchy. In the Russian Far East, bears sometimes engage in a first claim game when salmon carcasses wash up along riversides. The first bear to reach a fresh carcass often tries to drag it away from the water to eat in peace. Rivals may attempt to steal the prize, leading to tense standoffs and strategic retreat and return maneuvers that determine who keeps the meal. In captivity, some wildlife parks create safe, enrichment-based competitions for bears by hiding treats inside hollow logs or floating barrels in ponds. The challenge lies in figuring out how to open or reach the food, with bears often using paws, jaws, and even teamwork. These games encourage natural problem-solving behaviors while giving visitors a glimpse into the impressive intelligence of these powerful animals. In northern forests, bears sometimes participate in a seasonal foraging game centered on ant colonies. As summer progresses, ants become a valuable protein source, and bears will dig into large mounds to feast. When several bears share the same area, they compete to find the largest and richest colonies first. This competition is a mix of scent detection skill, speed in digging, and the ability to keep rivals at a distance while feeding. Along riverbanks in late autumn, some bears engage in a scavenging game for the last remaining salmon carcasses after the main run has ended. The fish are fewer and more scattered, forcing bears to search longer distances. In these conditions, the advantage often goes to the bear with the sharpest sense of smell and the stamina to keep moving until a hidden prize is found. Polar bears on drifting ice floes sometimes turn seal hunting into a high-stakes patience game. They position themselves near a breathing hole and remain perfectly still, sometimes for hours, waiting for a seal to surface. The bear that can endure the cold and resist moving until the exact right moment often secures a meal, while others who lose focus may go hungry. Grizzly bears in certain mountainous regions engage in a competitive digging game for roots and tubers during spring thaw. As the snow recedes, the best patches are revealed, attracting multiple bears. The richest soil areas are quickly claimed, and bears use body language and short bluff charges to establish control without resorting to dangerous fights. Winning these patches provides vital early-season calories after winter hibernation. In coastal Alaska, bears sometimes compete for kelp beds exposed during low tide. Kelp shelters small fish, crabs, and other edibles, and the bear that can wade through slippery rocks and thick vegetation the fastest gains the most food. These competitions can be surprisingly tense, with bears watching each other closely and occasionally using subtle intimidation to force rivals to give up prime spots. When berry bushes ripen in meadows, bears may engage in a silent but intense feeding game. The first bear to a bush often tries to strip it clean as quickly as possible while keeping an eye out for newcomers. Rivals might attempt to sneak closer or approach from the opposite side, leading to a silent battle of speed and positioning where every second counts. In the Canadian wilderness, black bears occasionally raid wasp nests for larvae, a high reward but risky foraging game. Bears must act quickly to tear open the nest and eat before stings become overwhelming. The bear that can finish the job in seconds has the advantage, while slower or less skilled individuals may retreat early, leaving part of the prize for others to claim. In certain valleys of the Himalayas, Asiatic black bears are known to compete for wild honeycombs. These natural games involve locating the hive, breaking into it despite swarming bees, and consuming as much as possible before the colony mounts an effective defense. Stronger bears can hold their ground longer, while smaller individuals must work fast or wait until the dominant bears leave. Cubs often invent their own mock challenge games with sticks, stones, or fallen logs. They may balance on narrow logs as if practicing for river crossings or toss objects to each other in playful exchanges. While these activities look harmless, they develop coordination, curiosity, and a willingness to experiment with problem solving, skills that will be critical for future competition over territory and resources. In areas where bears feed on carrion from large animal die-offs, a dominance game emerges almost instantly. The first bear to the carcass tries to defend it, but as the scent spreads, more bears arrive. These encounters become a test of size, strength, and courage, as some challengers attempt quick snatches of meat while the defender works to fend them off without losing too much energy. During spring in temperate forests, bears sometimes participate in what could be called a scavenger's relay game, moving between deer-fawn hiding spots. With an acute sense of smell, they locate vulnerable fawns concealed in tall grass or thickets. The bear that moves quickly and efficiently between hiding spots can gather more food, while slower bears may find that the opportunity has passed as fawns become more mobile and harder to catch. In wetland areas, bears occasionally engage in frog hunting games during seasonal amphibian migrations. At night, they move through shallow waters, snatching frogs as they leap. While this may not be a major food source, it provides extra protein, and the competition lies in finding the most concentrated areas. Bears with sharper hearing and quicker reaction times often leave with fuller stomachs. High in alpine meadows, bears sometimes compete over marmot colonies. Marmots dig elaborate burrow systems, and the challenge for a bear is to dig fast enough before the prey escapes underground. Bears that excel at this game combine strength with strategic digging, blocking escape routes with one paw while excavating with the other. These hunts can turn into contests when multiple bears target the same colony. In late summer, some bears engage in a sort of endurance game when raiding expansive berry fields. The goal is to move methodically through the patch without doubling back, maximizing intake while expending the least energy. Bears with better memory and spatial awareness can cover more ground efficiently, while less strategic individuals may tire quickly or miss areas with the highest yield. Bears along rocky coastlines occasionally engage in mussel foraging competitions. At low tide, they pry mussels from rocks and eat them quickly before rivals arrive. The best gatherers work with rapid, precise movements, taking advantage of their strong claws and jaws. Because mussels are small and require effort to collect, efficiency in this game can mean the difference between a worthwhile meal and wasted time. In boreal forests, Bears sometimes compete in scent-marking games to establish territory dominance. They rub their backs against trees, claw bark, and leave scent signals to announce their presence. When another bear arrives, it may try to mark over the scent, creating an ongoing competition. The bear that marks more frequently and in more locations projects dominance, reducing the chances of a direct confrontation later. Polar bears on land during ice-free months often play a scavenger's patience game, searching for carcasses of whales or walruses left behind by indigenous hunts. These massive food sources attract many bears, and those arriving early must decide whether to eat immediately or guard the site for days. The game becomes a balance of risk and reward as more competitors arrive. In forest clearings during insect hatches, bears sometimes compete in insect gathering challenges. Swarms of termites or other bugs can provide a surprising protein boost. Bears may break into rotting logs or dig into soil to get at them, with the quickest and most precise foragers getting the richest portions before the swarm disperses or retreats deeper into the ground. During particularly harsh years, when food is scarce, bears have been seen engaging in what could be described as a survival chess game. They shadow other bears at a distance, waiting for them to locate food. Once the discoverer begins eating, the follower may attempt to drive them off and claim the find. This strategy saves energy, but requires careful timing and risk assessment. In wildlife sanctuaries, enrichment activities sometimes involve floating frozen fruit blocks in ponds. Bears must figure out how to retrieve and break them open before the fruit melts or sinks. This enrichment game mimics natural problem-solving challenges, encouraging persistence and creative thinking. Observations show that more curious and determined individuals usually succeed faster, highlighting personality differences within bear populations. In regions where wild grapes grow, bears turn late summer foraging into a climbing and balance game. They scale vines that drape over trees, sometimes hanging precariously to reach the sweetest clusters. The bear that can maintain balance while pulling in heavy vines gains more fruit before gravity or competition interferes. This is not only a test of agility but also of patience, as grapes ripen unevenly and require careful selection. In salmon-rich rivers, bears occasionally engage in leap-catching contests without even realizing it. As fish surge upstream, some bears station themselves where the current forces salmon into the air. Those with faster reflexes and precise timing pluck the fish mid-leap, while others downstream rely on chasing fish through shallower waters. The leaping method often yields larger, stronger fish, making it a valuable skill. Bears living near agricultural zones sometimes participate in stealth-based crop-raiding games. Under the cover of darkness, they enter cornfields or sunflower patches, eating quickly before retreating to safety. The competition in these situations is often against human detection rather than other bears, with success depending on silence, speed, and knowing the quickest escape routes back to the forest. In tundra regions during bird migrations, bears may compete to raid ground nests. Since these nests are often clustered, the bear that moves most strategically between them gathers more eggs in a short time. Eggshells are fragile and easy to break, so careful handling with paws and tongue is needed, adding a layer of precision to the game. Bears in hilly terrain sometimes engage in log-rolling competitions, though unintentionally. When searching for insects, they roll fallen logs to expose hiding bugs. In areas with multiple bears, the richest logs are claimed quickly, forcing slower arrivals to settle for less productive ones. The best log rollers can flip heavy trunks in seconds, securing the most insect-rich rewards before competitors arrive. In early spring, when vegetation is just sprouting, bears may play a grazing game in meadows. The first bear to arrive often tries to remain in one prime patch, while others graze in shifting patterns, looking for fresh shoots. This quiet competition tests both memory, remembering where the greenest spots are, and stamina, since the best grazing areas may be spread across a wide area. Bears near mountain streams sometimes take part in a pebble-flipping game while fishing for small aquatic creatures. By moving rocks, they reveal crayfish, larvae, or tiny fish hiding underneath. The faster a bear flips and searches, the better the haul. But too much disturbance scares prey away, so efficiency is just as important as speed in this game of underwater hide-and-seek. In some coastal environments, bears take advantage of clam-rich tidal flats. They use their sense of smell to locate buried clams, then dig quickly before the tide returns. The challenge comes when multiple bears target the same patch, forcing each to work quickly and guard their dig site while keeping an eye on the incoming water that could cut the game short. In dense berry thickets, bears may engage in what resembles a tactical feeding game. They position themselves so they can strip bushes methodically without leaving gaps for rivals to exploit. Bears with better spatial awareness and foraging strategies can secure more berries while minimizing overlap with others, making this a silent yet calculated form of competition in the wild. In human-managed wildlife areas, keepers sometimes create scent trails using honey, fish oil, or fruit to simulate tracking games for bears. The animals follow these trails through enclosures, sometimes encountering hidden rewards at the end. This not only mimics natural hunting scenarios, but also encourages problem-solving and perseverance, with more determined bears completing the trail faster and claiming the prize. In late autumn, when hibernation approaches, bears sometimes engage in frantic foraging games that resemble a race against the clock. They move rapidly between known food sources, from remaining berry patches to carcasses, consuming as much as possible before winter sleep. The bear that remembers the most food-rich areas and moves with purpose can significantly boost its fat reserves, while less efficient foragers may enter hibernation weaker. Along shallow riverbeds, bears sometimes turn stone turning into a competitive sport. They flip over rocks in search of insect larvae, crayfish, or small fish. The game becomes more intense when several bears target the same stretch of river, forcing them to work quickly and defend productive spots. Bears with stronger forelimbs and faster reactions tend to claim the majority of these small but valuable meals. In regions where pine nuts are a seasonal delicacy, bears compete for the best cones before they drop to the ground. Climbing into trees to break off cone-laden branches requires agility and strength, and the bear that can reach higher or work faster secures more nuts. This activity not only provides essential fat, but also showcases the balance and climbing skills needed for arboreal feeding. Bears living near waterfall pools often take part in a fishing challenge unique to those spots. Salmon must leap repeatedly to clear the falls, creating predictable moments for bears to strike. The best positioned bear, usually the one bold enough to stand at the edge, can snatch fish midair with minimal effort. Bears farther away must rely on chasing fish that slip past, which is less efficient. In some parts of the Arctic, polar bears participate in a tracking game across vast stretches of ice. They follow the scent of seals for miles, using faint odor trails that may be hours old. The game's challenge lies in maintaining the trail despite wind shifts and ice drift. Bears with sharper olfactory senses and better endurance often succeed in finding a seal haul-out, securing a critical meal. When apple orchards grow near bear habitats, seasonal fruit raids become stealth games. Bears visit at night, moving silently between trees and eating rapidly to avoid human detection. This requires not just physical speed, but also awareness of lights, sounds, and scents that could indicate danger. Bears that master this delicate balance between risk and reward often gain a significant autumn food boost. In rocky alpine regions, bears sometimes hunt for pikas, small mammals that store hay for winter. Pikas are quick and elusive, so the hunt becomes a test of patience, speed, and strategy. Bears may position themselves near pika hay piles, waiting for the animal to return, or they may dig rapidly into rock crevices. The faster and more strategic bear usually secures the prize before the pika escapes. On coastal islands, bears sometimes forage for seaweed and small invertebrates, turning it into a timing game based on tides. The best foraging occurs during low tide, but bears must arrive early to secure the richest patches. They compete not only with other bears, but also with seabirds and other scavengers. Those with the most accurate internal tide clock tend to fare best in these conditions. In wetlands where wild rice grows, bears may wade through shallow waters to bend the stalks and strip the grain. When several bears share the same area, it becomes a slow-motion competition, with each trying to claim the most productive patches. The winner is often the one who can balance patience with movement, taking time to harvest thoroughly without letting rivals gain ground. In wildlife rehabilitation centers, enrichment games for recovering bears sometimes involve ice blocks containing layered treats. The bears must figure out how to break or melt the ice to reach each layer. Some use brute strength, smashing the block repeatedly, while others experiment with rolling it into sunny spots. These activities reveal individual problem-solving styles, mirroring the creativity they need to survive in the wild. In mountainous forests during early spring, bears sometimes engage in a root-digging race. As plants begin to emerge from the thawing ground, the most nutritious roots are found in specific sunlit patches. Multiple bears may converge on these areas, each trying to dig up the fattest, starch-rich roots before they are depleted. The competition favors those with both strong forelimbs and an instinct for identifying the best spots quickly. In coastal fishing grounds where tidal pools form, bears may compete in a delicate foraging game. As the tide recedes, fish, crabs, and mollusks become trapped in shallow pools. Bears that arrive first have the best pick, but they must move quickly before the pools drain or rival bears push in. Sharp eyes, swift movements, and a sense of timing are critical to dominating these fleeting opportunities. During the height of insect season, bears sometimes exploit termite mounds in a way that turns feeding into a demolition challenge. Large, hardened mounds require strength and persistence to break open, and the bear that can penetrate them fastest claims the richest protein source inside. This is one of the few games where sheer physical power outweighs stealth or strategy, as speed of access determines success. In the Arctic, polar bears may engage in what resembles a stealth pursuit game across ice fields. They shadow a seal at a distance, using ridges and pressure mounds for cover. The bear must judge exactly when to close the distance without alerting the prey. This game of patience and positioning can last hours, with one misstep causing the seal to vanish into the sea. In late summer, when wild plums ripen, bears often compete in a fruit harvesting rush. The best trees are stripped quickly, and bears that linger risk confrontation. This turns the feeding into a speed challenge, with quick climbers able to strip branches before descending to safety. Plums offer high sugar content, so winning in this race can provide a valuable pre-hibernation calorie boost. In dense spruce forests, bears sometimes compete in resin-licking contests. They strip bark to access sap, which is high in energy and minerals. While multiple trees are usually available, the richest flow often comes from specific damaged trunks, making them hotly contested spots. Bears may return repeatedly over several days, each visit becoming a quiet race to harvest before the sap thickens or rivals arrive. On coastal shores rich with spawning fish, bears sometimes take part in an opportunistic fishing game. Instead of chasing fish directly, they follow seabirds to areas where fish are trapped in shallow pools. The bear that reads these bird signals correctly can arrive just in time to scoop up multiple fish with minimal effort, turning knowledge of other species' behavior into a competitive edge. In dry grasslands, bears sometimes scavenge from predator kills, creating a risky confrontation game. Approaching a fresh kill requires gauging the predator's willingness to defend it. A successful bear can intimidate smaller predators into abandoning their meal, but misjudging the situation can lead to injury. This is a game of boldness, timing, and reading subtle animal behavior cues. Bears near geothermal areas sometimes take advantage of early vegetation growth, turning it into a quiet competition. Hot springs and warm ground thaw earlier, producing tender shoots before the rest of the landscape greens. The first bears to locate these microclimates can feed on fresh plants weeks ahead of others, giving them a nutritional jumpstart before the growing season fully begins. In certain river systems, bears sometimes face a navigation game when traveling between feeding grounds. Multiple pathways exist, some longer but safer, others shorter but more treacherous with steep climbs or crossings. Bears must choose routes that balance energy expenditure with the urgency of arriving before rivals claim the prime fishing or foraging spots. Those with better route memory often win this race. The practice of bear baiting was once a common spectacle in Europe, particularly during the medieval and early modern periods. In this cruel form of entertainment, bears were chained and set upon by dogs for the amusement of spectators. Though it is now illegal and considered inhumane, it remains an important historical reminder of how human attitudes toward wildlife have evolved. Modern conservationists cite it as an example of why ethical wildlife tourism and respectful animal observation are essential today. In Alaska, the annual Fat Bear Week is a beloved conservation awareness event hosted online by Katmai National Park. It celebrates the massive weight gain of brown bears as they prepare for hibernation. People from around the world vote for their favorite chunky bear based on photos from park webcams. Beyond the fun, the event teaches about bear ecology, salmon runs, and the importance of preserving pristine ecosystems. Traditional indigenous communities in North America often incorporated bear-related games into seasonal festivals, not to harm the animal, but to honor its spirit. These might include physical endurance challenges inspired by the bear's strength or storytelling competitions that passed on legends of bears as protectors, teachers, or symbols of courage. Such cultural events reinforced respect for the bear while deepening communal bonds. In Japan's northernmost island, Hokkaido, the Ainu people historically celebrated the Iomant, or bear sending ceremony. In this ritual, a bear cub was raised respectfully, given food and comfort, and then ceremonially released to the gods through a symbolic hunt. While modern attitudes toward animal welfare have changed the practice, it remains an important cultural memory, celebrated now with symbolic dances, music, and storytelling rather than the original hunt. Bear tracking competitions have become popular among certain ecotourism communities, especially in Canada and Eastern Europe. Participants compete to find, photograph, and document evidence of wild bears such as tracks, claw marks, and scat. The goal is not hunting, but improving field observation skills and promoting non-invasive wildlife monitoring, helping local conservation agencies collect valuable data on bear populations. In Finland and parts of Russia, wildlife photographers participate in bear blind challenges, where they stay hidden in camouflaged shelters for hours, or even days to capture rare shots of wild bears in their natural habitat. These events are often organized as friendly competitions, but they also emphasize patience, stealth, and the importance of minimizing disturbance to wildlife. The annual polar bear plunge, held in cold regions such as Canada, Norway, and Alaska, is a quirky human event that symbolically connects to the polar bear's icy environment. Participants dive into freezing waters in the dead of winter, often to raise funds for wildlife conservation causes. While no polar bears are present, the event raises awareness about their habitat loss due to climate change. Some wildlife reserves in India and Southeast Asia host simulated bear rescue drills for the public to watch. These events, though staged, demonstrate how conservationists safely capture and rehabilitate injured or orphaned bears. The audience learns about the challenges of poaching, habitat destruction, and illegal wildlife trade, and how rescue teams protect species like the sloth bear or Asiatic black bear. In the Yukon, bear safety workshops sometimes incorporate competitive games to test participants' knowledge. Challenges may include identifying bear species from photos, properly deploying bear spray under timed conditions, or setting up safe campsite food storage. Turning serious survival skills into friendly competitions helps make the lessons memorable and fun, especially for tourists unfamiliar with living alongside large carnivores. The concept of Bear Olympics has occasionally been used as a theme for wildlife education events in zoos and nature centers. In these playful exhibits, staff create enrichment activities for captive bears, such as puzzles to retrieve food, simulated foraging challenges, or log rolling contests. Visitors cheer on their favorite bears while learning how similar behaviors help them survive in the wild. Bears in the wild often engage in competitive behaviors that resemble natural games, especially when food is scarce or highly concentrated. For example, during salmon spawning seasons, multiple bears may compete for prime fishing spots along riverbanks. These contests involve displays of strength and dominance, such as vocalizations, bluff charges, and physical posturing, which help to avoid serious fights while determining access to the best feeding locations. In some parts of the world, young bear cubs play wrestling games that teach them important survival skills. These playful bouts involve biting, tumbling, and mock fighting, helping the cubs develop coordination, strength, and social understanding. Such early games are crucial for their development because they prepare them for real conflicts over territory, food, and mates later in life. Certain indigenous communities have traditionally included bear-themed games or dances in their cultural ceremonies. These symbolic events honor the bear as a powerful animal spirit and serve as a form of education about hunting techniques, bear behavior, and respect for nature. The games often mimic hunting strategies or bear movements, fostering a deep connection between people and wildlife. In Alaska's Katmai National Park, bears engage in what could be seen as a natural endurance game during the salmon runs. They travel long distances between rivers, constantly moving to catch fresh waves of fish. This requires stamina, memory, and quick adaptation to the timing of fish migrations, making it a survival contest of patience and agility. Bears sometimes participate in tree games, especially when competing for access to fruit-bearing trees such as wild apples or service berries. They climb, shake branches, and jostle each other to dislodge fruit, turning the act of foraging into a physical contest. These games test not only strength, but also balance and problem-solving abilities, as bears seek the most efficient way to harvest food. Polar bears play a unique hunting game on the Arctic ice by waiting patiently at seal breathing holes. They remain perfectly still for long periods, using their keen senses to detect the moment a seal surfaces. This waiting game demands tremendous patience and stealth, with success relying on timing and the ability to avoid detection by the prey. In some wildlife reserves, enrichment games have been developed to stimulate bears mentally and physically. Puzzle feeders, hidden scents, and obstacle challenges encourage problem-solving and mimic natural foraging behaviors. These games help captive bears maintain their cognitive skills and offer researchers insight into bear intelligence and adaptability. During years of abundant acorn production, bears travel great distances to reach oak groves, leading to social gatherings that involve subtle dominance games. Larger bears often claim the best feeding spots, while smaller bears must navigate carefully to avoid conflict. These interactions shape the social structure without resorting to overt aggression. Historical bear baiting events in Europe reflect a cruel form of game that humans once staged for entertainment. Captive bears were chained and harassed by dogs in public spectacles. Though now banned, these events serve as reminders of past human cruelty and highlight the importance of modern conservation ethics. In cub play, young bears often invent their own challenge games involving sticks, rocks, and logs. Balancing on logs or tossing objects, they practice coordination and social interaction. Such play is essential for developing skills that will be crucial in later life, from foraging to territorial disputes. Bears often transform the challenge of finding food into a subtle game of strategy and timing, especially during times when resources are limited. In the wild, bears compete silently by scent marking and carefully watching each other's movements to avoid direct confrontation. This silent competition allows them to conserve energy while ensuring access to critical feeding grounds, especially during the fall when they are preparing for hibernation. In some Arctic regions, polar bears engage in a unique game of stealth and endurance by stalking seals across the shifting sea ice. This involves following faint scent trails and waiting patiently near breathing holes for hours. The success of this game depends on a bear's ability to remain motionless and read subtle environmental cues, as any sudden movement can cause the seal to escape into the frigid waters. In the dense forests of North America, black bears sometimes turn berry picking into a contest of agility and speed. When several bears arrive at the same berry patch, they compete by climbing bushes and trees, grabbing fruit while also attempting to assert dominance through bluffing and vocalizations. The competition is fierce but generally avoids injury, with bears using these games to establish feeding hierarchies. Indigenous peoples in various parts of the world have long included bear-themed competitive games in their cultural traditions. These games often replicate hunting techniques or mimic the bear's movements, serving both as entertainment and education. Through these practices, communities teach respect for the animal and pass down critical survival knowledge, highlighting the bear's importance in their cultural identity. In coastal Alaska, brown bears participate in a natural endurance challenge during salmon runs, traveling from one river to another to catch the freshest fish. This constant movement requires keen memory and stamina, as bears must time their arrival to coincide with peak fish availability. This migratory game ensures that the strongest and most adaptable bears accumulate the most fat reserves before winter. Young bear cubs engage in playful wrestling and chasing games that help them develop important skills like balance, strength, and social communication. These early games are essential training for adult behaviors such as fighting for mates or defending territory. Cub play also builds bonds between siblings and strengthens their chances of survival once they leave their mother. During the fall, bears compete for access to fruit-bearing trees by climbing and shaking branches to dislodge food. These tree games require not just strength, but also agility and balance. Bears that master the art of climbing and foraging efficiently are better prepared for the winter months, gaining valuable calories in a short time. Polar bears' hunting strategy around seal breathing holes can be described as a high-stakes patience game. They must remain perfectly still and focused for extended periods, sometimes several hours, to ambush seals. This game tests their ability to control impulses and interpret environmental signals, as premature movements can result in a missed meal and wasted energy. In some wildlife sanctuaries, enrichment games are used to keep captive bears mentally stimulated. Puzzles, hidden treats, and obstacle courses encourage problem-solving and mimic natural foraging. These activities provide insights into bear cognition and behavior, showing how bears adapt to challenges and develop strategies to overcome obstacles. Historically, bear baiting was a cruel game staged by humans for public amusement, where bears were chained and attacked by dogs. While this practice is now outlawed, it remains a stark example of human cruelty towards animals and underscores the importance of modern wildlife protection and ethical treatment. Bears living in alpine meadows sometimes engage in a subtle game of territory, marking to establish dominance without direct conflict. By rubbing their backs against trees, scratching bark, and leaving scent marks, they communicate presence and strength to rivals. This scent-marking game reduces the need for physical fights, helping bears maintain social order while conserving energy for feeding and reproduction. In coastal areas where tidal pools expose shellfish and small marine creatures, bears participate in a timing game, arriving precisely when the tide recedes to forage. The challenge is to gather as much food as possible before the tide returns or other bears arrive. Success depends on understanding tidal rhythms and quick, efficient foraging techniques. During the spring thaw, bears often compete over root and tuber patches revealed by melting snow. Digging quickly and effectively is crucial, as these nutrient-rich foods provide essential energy after hibernation. Bears use a combination of strength and knowledge of soil quality to outcompete rivals, making this feeding strategy a competitive game of survival. Polar bears sometimes engage in a stealthy stalking game across shifting sea ice to catch seals. They use natural ice formations as cover, slowly closing the distance while avoiding detection. The game demands incredible patience, balance, and timing, with the slightest mistake resulting in a lost opportunity for a meal in a harsh environment. In forests with abundant nut-producing trees, bears participate in a climbing and shaking game to harvest cones and acorns. Climbing requires skill and balance, and shaking branches to dislodge nuts can provoke playful confrontations. This activity not only provides critical fat reserves, but also serves as an arena for social interaction among bears. Wild bear cubs often invent their own games involving sticks, leaves, and rocks. These playful activities build physical coordination and problem-solving skills while strengthening sibling bonds. Such early play is fundamental for developing the abilities necessary for hunting, defending territory, and social communication later in life. Some wildlife parks have developed enrichment games simulating natural challenges for captive bears. These may include puzzle feeders, scent trails, and obstacles requiring teamwork or clever tactics to access food. These games help maintain the bear's physical and mental health, offering insights into their cognitive capacities and adaptability. In autumn, bears often engage in a race against time, rapidly consuming high-calorie foods like berries and salmon before the onset of winter. This foraging frenzy can be seen as a survival game, where bears must maximize energy intake while avoiding unnecessary risks or conflicts, ensuring they accumulate sufficient fat for hibernation. During seasonal insect hatches, bears may turn termite mound feeding into a demolition game. Breaking open hardened mounds requires strength and speed, and the bear that can access the larvae quickest gains a rich protein source. This feeding method contrasts with more stealth-based hunting, showcasing bears' versatility in securing nutrition. Finally, many cultures worldwide honor bears through festivals and games that celebrate their strength, resilience, and spiritual significance. These cultural events blend storytelling, dance, and competitive challenges inspired by bear behaviors, highlighting the enduring connection between humans and bears across history and geography.